If you've ever made a top and then never wanted to wear it, I really hope today's video is going to be for you. Today I'm sharing 10 great woven top sewing patterns that I've either sewn multiple times already or that I feel I want to sew again and again. So these are patterns that I really feel fit into a real life wardrobe. They work well in lots of different fabrics, and most importantly, you're going to want to reach them in your everyday life. So I'll give you a quick snapshot of each pattern, why I think it's worth repeating and who I think it might be best for, so that you can decide which ones you think might work for you without wasting hours of trial and error. So let's get into it, shall we? So pattern number one is the Anthea blouse by Anna Allen. This pattern is a bit of a cult classic in the sewing community, isn't it? But I think for good reason. I absolutely love the style of this blouse. So the Anthea blouse is a very simple style blouse. It has a rounded neckline. It's completely buttoned through from top to bottom. There isn't any shaping as such in this blouse. There are no bust darts or waist and back darts or anything like that. So you really get that oversized, floaty, billowy feel. But of course, the absolute wow factor of this pattern is those really big puffy sleeves. I've sewn this pattern 3 or 4 times now, I think, and I love the simplicity of it. It's a really simple style blouse, but it's just got that little bit extra in the sleeves. And I feel like it really works well in lots of different types of fabrics and also lots of different prints too. I would recommend this pattern for someone who maybe likes to give a nod to the latest trend in their dressing but doesn't want to feel too out there, and maybe likes to do it in a more understated style, like myself, I think. So in contrast to perhaps how this blouse is supposed to be worn and styled, I prefer to sew my Anthea blouses from something with a little bit of drape. So the drape in the fabrics that I tend to use with my blouses actually makes those sleeves a little bit more floppy and a bit less pronounced. If you are someone that likes to make the most of the shape in a garment, then I would definitely suggest using a cotton or a linen or something that's going to hold its shape a little bit more. And why I think this one is worth repeating is because you get quite a different looking blouse depending on the type of fabric or even the colour or the print of the fabric that you choose to use. Moving on to pattern number 2, and that is the NYX blouse by Closet Core. I personally think that the blouse version of this pattern is a little bit underrated. There are actually 2 different blouse styles that you can sew from the NYX pattern. The version I want to talk about today is actually View C. So View C of this pattern is a very simple style blouse with a V neckline. It has a centre front seam, a back gathered yoke, and pretty gathered sleeves, which you can actually make either long sleeve or short sleeved. So if you are someone like me who loves a jeans and a top look in the summertime, and you really love a pretty sort of vintage style to a blouse, then I think this pattern could definitely be for you. I have actually sewn this blouse only once so far from quite a busy floral cotton lawn. I would really love to sew this again this summertime from a crepe fabric or possibly even a silk or a satin or something. I think it would look really beautiful just worn that way with a pair of jeans. It would be great for layering underneath knitwear for coming into springtime when it's a little bit cooler, and it would be great going into autumn as well. I love this blouse for layering because the sleeves aren't too big and puffy, so in contrast to something like the Anthea blouse, you've got a delicate little bit of gathering at the shoulder seam, but not the amount of poof that something like the Anthea blouse offers. This one again can be sewn in lots of different fabrics depending on the look and feel that you do want from your blouse. For me personally, again, I would always prefer to sew it from something with a little bit of drape. I feel like that just makes it a little bit more sort of feminine and more easy to layer underneath knitwear and jackets. So definitely one that's on my spring summer wish list. Pattern number 3, and if you know me, I'm sure you could have guessed that this pattern would make this list. It is the Marnie blouse by Tilly and the Buttons. I have sewn the Marnie blouse I think 3 or 4 times now, and I absolutely love it. So the Marnie blouse is quite an involved sew, I would say. There are lots of details in this blouse. It has quite a high rounded neckline and it's sewn from lots of different panels. So again, it's quite a big, billowy, oversized style blouse with quite a high yoke. And I love the fact that you can add in frills at the shoulders, you can add a frill around the neckline, you could add puckers and tucks to make everything a little bit more pretty. Depends how wild really you want to go with this blouse, and I think this blouse works really well in, again, lots of different fabrics depending on whether you sew it from either a plain fabric or a patterned or a more busy fabric. I've sewn a couple of plain versions of this pattern where I've included the tucks and the frills and things, and because I've used a plain fabric, then those details really stand out. But in contrast, I've sewn a completely plain version of this pattern using a really busy William Morris viscose print. And I absolutely love both of those blouses for very different reasons. They are definitely the blouses that I reach for if ever I need to be a little bit more dressy. And I think nearly every time I've worn a Marnie blouse, I've always had compliments on them, which is lovely. So you absolutely can sew this blouse from lots of different fabrics. My preference again would be something drapey like a viscose or a satin or a crepe. But if you are someone that really likes to emphasize the details and have a lot of structure in your frills and things, then you can go for a cotton or a linen. I don't think it pairs very well under knitwear or under anything tight, but it just works so nicely on its own as a statement piece. So if you are someone who tends to dress quite smart casually, like myself again, and you do love a jeans and a top look, then this pattern will most definitely be for you. So let's move on to something a little bit more understated, and I really wanted to mention the Scout Tee by Grainline Studio. I think this is such a lovely woven t-shirt pattern, and I've sewn this again a good 2 or 3 times, I think, in various different formats. So the Scout Tee is a very simple style t-shirt. Again, there is no shaping in this, no bust darts or anything like that. And there are no fastenings in this top either. It literally just pulls over your head. So if you are a beginner, I think this would be a really good pattern to try. So again, you really can sew this pattern from so many different fabrics depending on the look and feel that you're going for. Again, I prefer to sew mine from softer, more drapey, more fluid fabrics. So I tend to use rayons, crepes. I have one version in quite a soft cotton double gauze by Atelier Brunette, which works really nicely. This is a really great layering piece. So if you are someone that's looking to build a capsule wardrobe, I would definitely suggest sewing up a few of these in multiple different, possibly neutral colours that you can wear underneath knitwear, shirts, jackets, and things that you already own. I think it's a really versatile pattern, and it's really easy to sort of mix and match with other things in your wardrobe already. So I definitely recommend this pattern if you are someone who's looking for basics, and perhaps if you are someone that's not necessarily a fan of either sewing or wearing jersey. Next on the list is the Chalk and Notch Wren blouse pattern. So funnily enough, even though I absolutely love this pattern, I have only ever sewn it once. And I think possibly the reason for that is because it's kind of become overtaken by other blouse patterns that I have in my sewing pattern collection. But again, I would really like to revisit this pattern this spring and summertime because it's really, really pretty and there are some lovely details in it. So as with all the patterns I've talked about, really, you can sew this in various different fabrics depending on what your preference for certain fabric types is and how you like your garments to look and feel. In terms of style, this is a button through blouse. It has a very low rounded scoop neckline and some really pretty lantern style sleeves. So these sleeves are actually sewn in 2 parts and they're quite big and puffy again. But so I'm just going to put my pattern down so I can describe this. The top and bottom part of the sleeves actually form the shape of a lantern. So you've got almost like a cone shape at the top, and then you have another cone-like shape at the bottom, which kind of sticks out in an almost diamond-like shape. So it's elasticated really nicely just above your elbow. So similarly to a lot of the patterns that I've talked about in today's video, depending on which fabric you choose for this pattern, you're going to get more structure. If you use something with structure like cotton or linen, then your sleeves will really stand out and you'll really emphasize that lantern style shape. If you're someone that likes a more understated look, then if you go for something softer like a viscose, linen, rayon or crepe, then that lantern shape is going to droop and you're not necessarily going to get the same emphasis on the shape of that lantern style sleeve. So because of the shape of these sleeves, I would say that this isn't a great one for layering. Again, I do think this blouse is something that needs to be worn on its own, I would say. So I love to wear my version of this pattern with a pair of wide leg jeans that I have, but whenever I wear it, particularly because it's actually sewn from a cotton seersucker and the sleeves are quite wide and puffy, I know that I'm not easily going to be able to put a cardigan or a jacket over the top of it. So I think this one is great, again, if you are going out somewhere and you just want that really nice sort of jeans and a nice top kind of look. But if you're looking for something that you want to build more of a layering wardrobe, this possibly isn't for you. So moving on to something a little bit more simple now, and something again that I think would work really, really well if you are someone that's trying to build on your basics and possibly build a capsule wardrobe for this spring and summertime, and that is the Hemlock tee by Capstone Patterns. This is such a beautiful pattern, and funnily enough, again, I've actually only ever sewn this once, but again, I need to come back to this one because I absolutely love and wear all the time the version that I have. So the Hemlock tee pattern is a really simple V-neck style woven t-shirt top. It's cropped and boxy. It has short sleeves and a centre front seam which adds a little bit of detail. What I really like about this pattern is that it does include a hem facing. I love a hem facing if you're wearing a cropped top because it gives the whole top a little bit more structure, especially if you're wearing something cropped. It will just help the top to hang really nicely over whatever you're wearing on your bottom half. Another thing I really, really love about this pattern is that it's finished so nicely. The designer actually has you to French seam everything inside, and then everything is really neatly enclosed within the facings and things used in the design. So yeah, if you are someone that wants to build on your basics, I think having a few of these sewn from either a cotton, a linen, a crepe or a viscose that you can layer underneath knitwear, shirts, jackets and things would be really, really useful and really versatile coming into the next season. Okay, so I think we're up to pattern number 7. I haven't been keeping great track throughout, but let's just keep going, shall we? So next, let's talk about the top that I'm wearing today, which is one of my absolute favourite woven top or blouse sewing patterns, and that is the Nephaline blouse by Vivian Xiaochen. I absolutely love this pattern. I think it is at the moment my number 1 blouse pattern. I'm going to say it. I'm going to put it out there. I think it is my number 1 blouse sewing pattern. So again, this is an oversized floaty billowy style blouse pattern, and you can sew it either with a high rounded neckline or the low scoop neckline, which I'm wearing today. There are those two options, and then with the scoop neckline there's also the option to add a frill around the scoop neckline, which I've added on my blouse here. I really love blouses and blouse patterns that are quite simple in style but just have a few little details to just elevate them slightly, and I think you get all of that within this pattern. So in terms of the sleeves are quite big and puffy again, but in contrast to the Anthea and maybe the Wren blouse patterns, the top of the Nephaline blouse is actually sewn into the blouse flat. You don't actually have any gathering at the top of the shoulder. All of the gathering and the poofiness is formed in the cuff area, and the cuffs actually sit just below your elbow, which I find a really flattering length. If you're someone like me that's constantly wanting to pull their sleeves up all the time, this is a really good length. So you get these lovely big billowy sleeves, and the sleeves actually include some quite wide knife pleats, which I also felt was a really lovely detail. I feel like the fabric that I've actually sewn this particular blouse in is more suited for springtime. I very much have another one of these blouses on my list to sew coming into springtime, and I have the fabric already and I'm really looking forward to revisiting this pattern again. But yeah, a really great addition to spring summer wardrobe if you are a jeans and a top person like myself, as I keep saying. Then it is a really, really pretty one to have in your wardrobe and really good fun to sew as well. It comes together really nicely. My next pattern is the Ashton top by Helen's Closet, one that's been around for quite some time, and again I would say a really popular one in the sewing community for very good reason. So the Ashton top by Helen's Closet comes in a few different formats with a few different versions that you can sew from the pattern. The version that I particularly like is the cropped version. So this does have a little bit of shaping around the bust, but otherwise it's a very boxy style. I love the fact that there are no fastenings in this, so the neckline is wide enough that you can actually get it over your head. So when you're making the cropped version of the Ashton top, it does come with a hem facing, and I've already talked about how much I do love a hem facing. Once I'd made one version of this top from a linen blend fabric, I was absolutely hooked because I just love the way that it sat over my wide leg trousers and jeans. Again, if you are someone that wants to work on sewing more basics and more mix and match garments for your wardrobe, this is a really, really great one. It's great for layering. Another great thing about this pattern is that there is an add-on pack for various different sleeves that you can sew to add on to the basic form of the Ashton top. I've actually sewn the version with short cap sleeves, and again I just found it so nice to wear. So yeah, I think if you're someone that wants to work on a capsule wardrobe for spring and summertime, sewing one of these in lots of different neutral colours would be a really great addition to your wardrobe because it's so nice and easy to build an outfit around. My next pattern is the Patina blouse by Friday Pattern Company. This is another pattern that I have sewn countless times. I think I actually have 5 versions of this pattern in my wardrobe and probably plans to sew more as well. What I mostly love about this pattern is its nod to vintage style. So this is a fully button-up blouse with a low V neckline, and you can either sew it with short or longer sleeves, and the longer sleeves are gathered into a proper cuff with a button. The flat collar is one of the sort of easiest collars to sew, so if you are more on the beginner side of your sewing and you have been nervous to try a collar, then I would say that this is probably a great place to start. I've actually sewn this from a few different fabrics. Again, if you're someone that likes a little bit of structure and you really want to emphasize the collar and the gathered sleeves, then go for cotton, linen, anything with a bit of structure. I think you could even sew this from something like denim, or even a soft corduroy or something in the winter would be really nice and really warm. I've used a viscose twill, I've used a soft cotton gauze, I've used pure viscose as well, and they all work really nicely and all work in very different ways. So the short sleeve version is slightly less poofy and gathery because you've just got sort of a straight bottom of your sleeve. You haven't got the amount of gather into a cuff that you would have if you were sewing the long sleeve version. So the short sleeve one does work quite nicely under a cardigan, but also if you're sewing the longer sleeve version, then I think it layers really nicely underneath things like pinafore dresses, pullovers and tank tops and things like that too. But obviously because of the low V neckline of the blouse, you need to be wearing something that will accommodate that low V neck. That's pretty obvious, but I thought I would say it anyway. So last on my list is the Omei blouse, or Omei woven top by Style Arc. So this one comes with a slight caveat, because if you've seen my sew along video that does go along with this pattern, you'll know that initially I had a lot of trouble following along with the Style Arc instructions that went alongside this pattern, which can happen with Style Arc patterns, although I know that they are getting far better with their instructions now. But saying that, this pattern does have a really lovely cut, and now I've worked out how to sew it and how best to sew it for me. I absolutely love this pattern. I love the style of this blouse. So this is a sleeveless blouse. It buttons fully from top to bottom. Again, it has quite a low V neckline and this really pronounced flounce all around the V neckline, which I think is really, really pretty. I love this blouse for wearing in the really warm summertime with wide leg trousers, jeans and shorts. And because it doesn't, again, have any shaping in it, it's really loose and floaty and perfect for wearing in really hot weather on very hot days. I have 2 versions of this in my wardrobe now, one from an ivory crepe fabric and one from a Lady McElroy cotton lawn, which I wore loads last summer when we had some really hot days. I think this pairs really nicely either out and floaty over wide leg jeans and shorts, or it looks great tucked into high-waisted trousers and jeans too. I think if you're someone that's sewn quite a few different blouses and you have quite a lot of sewing experience, I think you'll be able to work out the instructions on your own fine. If you are a little bit nervous about it, then I do have a sew along video which I'll link below, which probably has a few sort of tips and things that I found along the way which might be helpful to you if you do want to sew it. But yeah, it is a really lovely, really pretty blouse that I'm most definitely going to be sewing again. I think it would look really lovely in a tencel denim fabric or maybe a chambray or something like that. So that's definitely also going on my spring and summer to sew list. Again, I do think this blouse would be really great if you are trying to build more of a capsule wardrobe, because again it would work so nicely in lots of different fabrics. It would also look really nice in a floaty linen viscose or something. I think if you sew it in plains or neutral fabric, then it would work really nicely with any patterned bottoms, skirts and trousers and things that you have. Likewise, if you sew it in a more busy floral print, maybe even a stripy would be lovely, or spotty. That would also pair really nicely with any plain or neutral bottoms that you have. So a really easy top to build an outfit around, I think. So that brings me to the end of today's pattern roundup. I really hope that there's been some spring sewing inspiration in that little list for you. Please do let me know if you've sewn any of those patterns and let me know if they would have made it into your top 10 as well. If I haven't mentioned anything that would have appeared in your own top 10, then please do let me know in the comments as well what you would add to this list. I would love to know. I am very much in the mood for spring sewing inspiration at the moment, as I'm sure you probably are too, as the days get longer and hopefully brighter. So thank you so much for watching today's video. Please don't forget to give the video a like if you have enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you aren't already subscribed. I do put out sewing videos every Sunday at 8 AM, and I'd love to have you as a subscriber. If you want more additional behind the scenes content, then I do also have a Patreon, which I will link down below. I think that's everything I need to say in today's video, so take care everyone, and I'll look forward to seeing you soon. Bye.